podcast focused on trends shaping the future of manufacturing. I'm Alexandria Bjork, your host, here with A.W. Schultz, two thought leaders with a passion for people and manufacturing. Today and every episode, we are diving deep into the advancements, sustainable practices, and dynamic changes transforming how we produce everything.
And now welcome Alexandria Bjork and A.W. Schultz.
Hey everybody, welcome to Factory of the Future. I'm here with A.W. Schultz. I'm Alexandria Bjork, and today we've got the topic of smart factory. A.W. is going to school us on the 9 components of a smart factory, and we're here to have a great conversation about how we can bring that into our professional lives and the factories of the future. Let's go, A.W.
Yeah, well, thanks for the introduction. And this is a topic that's it's got sometimes some friction to it, but it's not that it's naysayers or those, but it's understanding the different technologies that go into smart factories, and what the technologies they have is to think about. A smart factory is an industry or a facility that's got automation, and when there's 9 technical pillars of it. But a lot of it's driven by the technology we've got through Industrial 4.0. Now, as you remember, I talk about Industrial 5.0 with the idea of resiliency and human-centric approach, but it holds true that you have to have the technologies to drive out some of these losses too. But the people side of it also plays a part of it. But in a smart factory, there's really 9 things that people tend to set apart that makes it a smart factory. The first thing is the understanding the industrial Internet of Things. It's that the idea of we're taking all that data, we're putting it into the cloud, we'll pull all that stuff out, running algorithms with all this big data that we have out there. Different technologies we can analyze, maximizing throughput and reducing waste as we go through it. Also, you also deal a lot with simulations. So you're doing a lot with the testing before it. Typically, smart factories are all high speed. So you got a lot of autonomous. So there's lots of robotics, lots of sensors, things that are going in and out, constantly pushing finished goods out of it. You're dealing with the cybersecurity of it. Now, this is something that I think a lot of companies are facing with this day. And there's also the idea of additive manufacturing. So additive manufacturing is taking what we have and putting more value to it. Autonomous robots, augmented reality. So think about this in the future. We've got operators that could be possibly operating equipment from around the world. Cobots, so part machine and ran by a human operator. Cloud computing. To me, when I think about smart manufacturing, I think about the highly automation, the highly robotics, and in a more, I guess, interesting case, the idea of smart manufacturing is taking something and adding as much value to it as possible and running it through. Now, some of the advancements that we're starting to see is where linear manufacturing is, starting from one end, from processing it from the minerals or the farm all the way to the end. One of the things that's trending is the idea of a circular manufacturing, or circular economics is really what it's called. Is the idea of, you're taking something, think about like the Tesla car, and you're able to make it one time, run its natural loop of life, and now we can recycle it, and maybe it doesn't turn into a car next time, but maybe we use the materials to create something else with it.
Yeah, we refer to that at our organization as closed loop manufacturing. Is that the same thing?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
cool. So there were three things, and I think maybe now we'll have to add that as a fourth that you said that really excited me, and I'd like you to dive deeper into. So first, I don't think a lot of people are prepared for or even would think about cybersecurity as it relates to the manufacturing process, right? Like, so my organization is always sending out, training on cybersecurity, and to be honest, I'm thankful that I used to think of it as a burden, and now I'm thankful that I get that training because of my white collar corporate America job, because it protects me in my personal life. And I was aware of this when I experienced some stuff where somebody I know and love literally got phished and literally like fell for it because they weren't trained by anybody and they weren't aware that this is something, and it happened to them. So let's talk about what organizations can do to protect their like, how do they build systems and like protect cybersecurity or whatever when it comes to the manufacturing process? Because that could be like, I could see a hacker who shuts down a Tesla, manufacturing plant if it's not properly secured. I mean, they have a lot of leverage there. I mean, you think about what Tesla stands to lose if they're down for an hour or a day. Same thing for any other company that's doing all this with the robotics and the automation. Talk a little bit about what you see and what people are doing to protect their manufacturing processes from hackers.
Well, the one example I've seen is, they come over, take over, and then they want some kind of ransom.
Yeah.
And particularly, this happened in the U.S. The one that's coming to my mind is um, the I think it was oil refinery. No, it was a processing plant, or maybe a tank farm or something or other, where they shut them down. Um, I'm no expert in understanding what the different areas that's going into cybersecurity. But the
Mm-hmm.
interesting thing I can share is that one of the things that I do when I do workshops is
Mm-hmm.
I take them. I often take my delegates, and I ask them. I train them about failure mode effects analysis, and I want to remove them from their being a subject matter expert to being more of a learner. So I ask them to pretend that they are in charge of the national risks in their country that we reside in. And I asked them to come up with, and I give them a list of all these different scenarios. One of them is cybersecurity. The other one is a global pandemic. The other one is logistics. And if you were in your country, what would be the top risks that you would identify? And when you go through a failure mode effects analysis, you have to determine what the detectability is, the severity of it is, and prevention of it. And surprisingly, every single time I've done this, cybersecurity is always in the top three. And I've done at least 20 or 30 of these expos, and it's amazingly surprisingly. It doesn't matter if I'm in the US or somewhere overseas. They always come up with cybersecurity. So it's
Wow.
it's a real thing.
Yeah, until we just talked about this, I like I said, if I've mentioned it, if not, I'm thinking it, and I'm it's just at the forefront of my mind now. I just never would have thought about protecting the actual manufacturing process with a cybersecurity perspective. It never would have occurred to me. And now it's just, once you see it, you can't unsee it. Like, of course, we need to be having that a top priority in what we're doing, especially as we move into the future, like you said. Okay, I want to understand, the next thing you talked about was this additive manufacturing. And I think this is really cool because I'm a big fan of Bedros Keuilian. I don't know if you know who he is. He is a entrepreneur, thought leader in kind of self-development, but also wellness and some other things. Anyway, he talks about, like, in business and as an entrepreneur, like, take a gym. You have a gym. Okay, that's one source of revenue. So it's kind of parallel to additive manufacturing, but you have this gym. How can you add in additional revenue sources? So you have this gym, then you start selling supplements. That's a second revenue source. Then you sell at home training on an app for when they can't be in the gym, or you sell classes in addition to the gym memberships. Like, how can you bake in multiple revenue streams from one business and continually build on? It sounds like when you're talking about additive manufacturing, you might be talking about the same thing or might not. So help me understand if I was on the right page and drawing that parallel, or if you're referring to something else, and maybe just dive a little deeper into the additive manufacturing that you're referring to.
Yeah, I mean, it's, I think of examples. It's taking more of what you have and finding different avenues to expand on it. It's taking something with some value and adding more value to it.
Okay.
For me,
It's kind of a tough one, honestly. Like, I'm a bit stumped here thinking about like what does additive manufacturing translate to in real life? Is it maybe like I'm thinking about process of making or reconditioning a steel drum, because that's my background. So as we're running the drum through the factory, we paint the drum. Is it that we could paint other things as well, or I don't
one
know.
of the examples that especially people with additive manufacturing talk about is 3D printing.
Oh,
It's the idea that I just come upon this idea that can you 3D print most of the stuff that's out there today? And the answer is no, you can't. It's a little bit slower, but it's also dealing with plastics. But the future for it is very promising.
yeah.
One time I worked with an individual, and they were talking about building into their storeroom 3D printers. So it would print the parts that would be needed. And
Oh,
a lot of these
what?
parts are made of plastics or
Yeah,
belts and other things
yeah.
like that, or seals. And you wouldn't necessarily have to keep them online. Now, naysayers will say, well, it's different kind of plastics or resins and stuff like that. But what I'm hearing is that no, it's possible to make it out of multiple different types of plastics. So anybody out there, I'd be willing to learn more about it, because I'm an early learner on this subject, but I find it very, very interesting.
So when you said that, I immediately knew how we could apply this at the company I work for. So we use these widgets, like closures. They're made of resin. We also take raw resin in, we grind it and wash it, grind it, and we sell it as PCR. So for those who don't know, post-consumer resin, which can then later be melted down and repurposed as post-consumer recycled resin when you see it in whatever says that this is made from that. But this idea of a 3D printer is just incredible. We do a lot of injection blow molding. And so, I'm like, okay, but what you just said about the printing, could we print some of the closure items using, like, instead of shipping the PCR, which would be additional carbon, out to the people that take it, and then eventually use that to make the closure item that then has to be, so it has this PCR has to be shipped to that person, this PCR refinished to the closure item, shipped out there and processed, and then shipped back to us. Could we cut all that shipping out, which is carbon, and all these other energy sucks on our resources? Could we instead just take the PCR that we have that we would otherwise sell, keep it in-house, and then use it to 3D print the closures that we're buying at a premium from our third-party provider? This is a huge question I now have for my organization, and I am going to ask it. So we'll stay tuned on that. Thank you for the recommendation. What about operators offsite? Like, have you seen this play out? And what are some of the pros and cons? Because that got me really excited. I'm a big fan of remote work. And I'm thinking, oh my God, how cool would it be if people who are in factory jobs, who don't necessarily have the luxury like some of us white collar people to work remotely, what would it look like for people to literally run a factory from their home? Like, have you seen this done? Tell us more about this. I'm so excited for this
I have
idea.
not seen it done, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
Cool.
But I have read about it. I have read about
Cool.
these theories on it. And if you think about the capabilities of virtual reality, And we're starting now to have, they're showing capabilities of having, virtual meetings that you're out there. There's no reason why we can't have somebody from the other side of the world, operating a piece of equipment. Now, granted, there's going to be times where things go wrong and there needs to be somebody on site, but think about the amount of labor with that and where you could have it located that at a low cost and have minimal staffing to essentially be doing the same thing that might be done in a large city. And you can live anywhere you want.
Yeah, that's so cool. That gets me really excited about the future of manufacturing. Like literally,
Yeah.
that just opened my eyes up to such a cool world that we're going to be stepping into. A lot of people, I know that there's probably a strong majority of people who would strongly disagree with me in these wild concepts that are making me excited, and probably you as well, based on your work with the Industry 5.0 and what you're studying and with getting your PhD and all these things. But I really truly believe that there's so much good. There's so much good out there, and so much good coming, and so many good opportunities as a result of these developments. And I'm excited to see what happens. And I think it's interesting to consider one of the guys I met was tasked with this carbon emissions reduction, which I'm sure we could do a whole episode on if we wanted to, and how it's affecting their business. But like when we boil it down, like, this idea of additive manufacturing and operators offsite, how this could play into a drastic reduction in carbon emissions and wasted resources. So like, I'm really excited. Maybe we could talk about that and how it plays with some of the other things going on. But that's a great overview of a smart factory. And maybe we'll have to dive in deeper on some of these topics in the future, and maybe it'll be a source of kind of research for you in the coming weeks. So, but I don't know. Are we clocking out here?
Yeah. So this episode is about smart factories and understanding what they are, kind of setting that framework for future episodes, because it plays a lot into the factory of the future. And you think about how the revolution of when we started with steam and coal to where we are today with high-tech sensors and smart factories, it starts in the factories, and things evolve from what we've learned and reapplied and going into daily days. So with that, I think we're checking out. We're checking out like finished goods.
Yeah.
All right. So
thanks
for
AW.
tuning in for Factory of the Future. This is Alexander Burke and A.W. Schultz.
Thanks.
Take care. This is Factory of the Future, and we are out of here like finished goods. Stay tuned for our next episode of Factory of the Future, where we're exploring groundbreaking techniques and behaviors that are reshaping industrial landscapes. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review and help others discover the cutting-edge insights transforming manufacturing as we know it.